Nico. So, okay, Matt, welcome to Degrowth podcast in Scotland. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell me where you are and what you do?
Hi, Nico. Well, I'm in Dumfries. My name is Matt Baker, and I am one of the founders of an organization in Dumfries called the Stove Network. We're a group, we started by a group of artists who wanted to make a difference in our community. We saw some issues in our town, and we wanted to be part of making some change. And that was 10 years ago, and 10 years down the line, we are now providing employment for 41 people in our community, local people from our community, and we're involved in a number of partnership projects around placemaking in terms of improving things for communities, and communities being part of shaping the way that they change themselves.
Oh, thank you. As you know, I don't know nothing about degrowth, so I'm here to learn. Like other people be listening, they'll be learning from you. So the first question is this one: how would you explain or describe degrowth in Scotland and a decolonization to people listening?
Yeah, well, I've thought a lot about how to answer that question, because you told me you were going to ask me that question. And I actually want to start with like why. I think I want to, and I want to start with I actually want to start with stories and the way that we understand ourselves, because I come from a cultural background. So to me, stories are everything. It's the way that we understand the world. So somehow we have come to understand our world through economics. You know, the kind of big grown-up story of what is important and what is common sense, and what underpins the world, what we need to make countries work and for everybody to be safe. And we've kind of adopted this idea that for our economy to work, it needs to keep growing, because if we have growth, we have progress, and if we have progress, we're making enough money and we make enough profit, and we can all share that profit, we're going to be okay. That is the way that I understand the story that we are told, you know. And if we unpick that story a little bit, then you know, we go, well, hold on. If you go back to the beginnings of what economics was, why do we have economics? You know, and if you go back to Adam Smith, who's one, you know, writing in Scotland in the 18th century, about the wealth of nations, the beginnings of economics, he wasn't just talking about money. He was talking, the wealth of nations included our culture, included our people, it included everything. And somehow we've moved away from that holistic understanding of wealth as being community wealth, and we've got this. We've focused on money. And we've focused on profit and on making a profit, you know. But you know, unpick that a little bit further. What's profit? You know, at its base, there you go. Like you grow enough food to eat, and if you grow a little bit more than you need, then you sell it, and then you use that money to buy things, you know. But the things that you don't, you know, you don't have time to make because you're growing food. But in that growth model, that cycle becomes everything, and it starts to unbalance everything when profit becomes king like that, and everything becomes directed to be making that excess rather than what you need. And I think we need to start looking back at like what we need rather than constantly thinking about excess, because if you want to make profit, you need to push something to make profit, whether you're pushing people about their wages, or you're pushing the resources in the land, and we're taking more and more from the land. And then you get into the decolonization bit, where you think, well, we need to go somewhere else because we've used up the resources here, or we need to find more. We need to find more ways of making profit. And this becomes the story. It becomes the story that you need to have progress in order for people to be safe and for people to survive. But you know, it's all that idea that you just make enough money and it will look after everybody. And that is the fairy story that we all get told, because in order to make that money, somebody basically has to suffer. Somebody has to be on the wrong side of that equation, and what actually happens is you end up with smaller and smaller amounts of people with an awful lot of money, and more people with no money. And that is what we need to change. So for me, the degrowth thing is it comes back to the stories. It comes back to a story of, like, we need to start telling a different story. We need to undercut that growth, profit, exploitation story, and we need to start telling the stories about sustainability and about sustainable living, in the same way that cultures, the indigenous cultures that some of that colonization worked on, they weren't interested in profit and growth. They were interested in just living. And what is wrong? We've lost that. And so the degrowth thing is about strategies for sustainable living, which is not about progress, not about exploitation.
Oh, thank you. You touched something about the cultures. I don't want to just a quick and go back a bit about. Do you think cultures in Scotland got something to do, or they also suffer from degrowth or decolonization?
Cultures in the sense of different cultures in Scotland?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, I talked to some people that they mentioned the Highlands, for example, or other place seems like it would be more or less support from the government, for example, or less people, or
we've had a model in Scotland which has concentrated resources into cities, and that has like where I live is right at the bottom of Scotland, is 70 miles from Glasgow and just a little bit further from Edinburgh. But in the economic model that we exist in at the moment, I am supposed to feel like I am part of Glasgow, okay. Because the model is that you put everything into a city, and then everybody else lives within those cities. Everybody is connected to a city, so that my culture should be happening in Glasgow, and I go visit it in Glasgow. So some of the degrowth stuff is about saying, we need to be more local in the way that we think, and we need to allow those differences to flourish and be living together as a series of enjoying the differences within our own cultures, enjoying the fact that we've got people from different cultures who live with us, rather than trying to lump everything into one big group that exists through profit. Yeah.
Yes. So the next question, this one is about actually looking at how do you? Yeah, I'm just gonna phrase the question for you. How do you put these ideas into practice in your own work or in your community? I know you covered almost some of the stuff to us, but I just want to.
Yeah, I can talk. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the chance to talk about it in these terms, because it's really nice to be thinking about it in those more global terms. Because I mean, 10 years ago, the idea that we had was to just dig where we stand, as Alistair McIntosh would say, to be in our place and try and make something good happen in our place, and then maybe somebody over the next glen would be making something good happen over there, and they would join up. So that was our sort of degrowth thing of like, let's make our place special, and then join up with next door as another special place, and then the next one and the next one. But but from the cultural point of view, what we're really trying to do is to involve people in creating their own culture, the way the model that we have inherited about how we do culture in Scotland. There's a long sort of story how that's come about, but effectively we have a model where we pay professional people to make culture, and then everybody else consumes that culture, and then we have sort of education programs to help us understand it better and all the rest of it. But and I think the role that culture can play I think it's one of the things that as a degrowth method for Scotland, we are a very, very cultural people. We tell stories, we do ceilidhs. It's part of how we understand ourselves and how we live. But we separate that from the idea of culture. Culture is something that clever culture people do and not what everybody does. So we need to, but what that culture can do for us, that participating in that culture, making our own culture, can also be a big part in that inequality conversation in terms of health outcomes for people. That profit motive we're talking about, it works very well for the drug companies to have 20% of our population on chronically taking antidepressants. People could, those therapies, the way people could be feeling much better about themselves by having more confidence, being more part of their community and work and feeling part of things, feeling like they've got a stake in things and feeling like they're being listened to. And that's one of the things that culture can really do. Same in education. We can be, some of the inequalities that we have in education, that kids learn in different ways. Adults learn in different ways. We should be thinking about lifelong education. So what we're putting forward really is a sort of radical view that culture should be about participation. It should not be about consuming something that other people have made, but it should be about making it ourselves. And that to us is a localism agenda as well, because one of the outputs that you get from that participation in culture is that you get you grow new ideas, you grow new businesses potential, new social enterprises, you grow environmental projects, because people come together and they go, oh, we got involved in that thing, we started talking, well, what about that building over there? Maybe we should do something about that, and that turns into a new idea, and then that turns into a group, and then that group maybe gather some money together, make something happen, create some jobs for some other people. So the culture thing, it works on a number of different levels, but all the time that we're talking about this community wealth building idea and this localism idea of not thinking like, how can we make the maximum amount of money from this, and like let's exploit the natural resources that we've got here, let's create a huge tourism business and get the million people here, because we just then become part of the problem again. Somebody else starts to lose out because of that. And this is about growing something at a local level, which is carrying everybody up with it, rather than creating inequalities by making profit, which means that somebody's losing out.
Okay, we'll go to the third question, sorry. The third question, there's a phrase, if it's not just, it's not degrowth. What does this mean to you?
If it's not just, yeah. Well, I think that just means fairness to me, and that's what I hope we've been talking about is that ultimately there's that sense that nobody's losing out, nobody's gaining at the expense of other people, and that's what I mean by justice. That's what I mean by fairness, and that. Even though I've been talking about a very local agenda, which in some sense maybe means like, okay, we're not really thinking about the big world. I think we are thinking, it's that thing about, I think act local, think global, because that the impact of thinking and working in that way is an attitude. It's an attitude that says, oh, we're all part of the same. We're all part of the same planet. We're all facing, and it allows you to connect people around the world through those basic values, because you're not hiding something. You're not saying, well, actually, we know we're taking you guys for a ride somewhere down the line. You actually go, no, we're on our land doing our thing in our way, and so are you, and let's do it together. I mean, I think, you know, the vaccine thing in the you know, in the COVID is just such a clear example of how wrong we're getting. It's like the world gave us an opportunity to do the right thing, of like, right, here's a totally global problem that is affecting people in the same way. Everybody is getting sick in the same way. We're just human beings, and it's like, it couldn't be more equal. And yet we've managed to turn that, you know, there was an opportunity there to like do the right thing. Let's create a vaccine. Let's make sure that everybody gets the vaccine. And instead we've gone into these bubbles of like, right, well, we've got loads of vaccine, so we're going to be all right. But then the world, you know, the world, we know that the people who haven't got the vaccine are going to carry on creating new, they're going to keep getting sick, they're going to keep dying, they're going to create new variants, which are then going to like mess up the vaccine. It's like, it's stupid. It's absolutely crazy that we're not, that's the opposite of the justice thing. So we should have been thinking, we should have all been, in that time that we were all in our own places and thinking locally while we were in lockdown, we should have been also thinking globally and reaching out and using that time to connect and build new understanding and pathways. It's such a shame. So that, yeah, the justice, I agree. There is, with no justice, you have no degrowth. No question to me.
But if on the degrowth level, what would you say on this? What you just talked to me about?
On a degrowth level with the vaccine, sorry, what do you mean?
No, everything, because there's a time I wanted to chip in as well when you talked about everybody's put on medication, on the depressants and stuff like that. I was thinking on the culture level, like other colonized countries, for example, they're not allowed to use the traditional medicine as such. And then,
oh, really? Yeah, same. Yeah.
So I wanted you to go there to look at, for me, like look at the degrowth as well, and just go on colonization levels.
The thing like with the milk for babies and things as well. Yeah, I know. It's just unbelievable the way that to drive profit. Yeah, well, those medicines need to be, you know, they're important, those medicines, and they work. So really, it's really amazing. Do you know the story of Cuba? Cuba is really important from a medicine point of view, with when they lost all their income. All their income used to be based on selling oil, also selling sugar to Russia, and then when the Soviet Union crashed, no more money, and so they had to go back to traditional medicine, and they've become world experts in herbal and homeopathic medicine as a result, because they had no money and they were embargoed by the states. It's tragic. Yeah, no, you're quite right, Nico.
Good. Anyway, thank you so much, Matt.
No problem.